Shawn, what's up, brother? Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. I really appreciate it. You get some amazing guests on here, so it's an honor to be here talking to
Yeah, every once in a while we have to make an exception and bring somebody like yourself on in the midst of our other amazing guests.
you.
No, man, I'm glad to have you. It's funny, this was probably I think this was 2 years ago. I was on a hunt in Minnesota, which is a hunt I do every year, and I was driving back to the airport with my buddy, and he was like, "Hey, have you heard this show?" And I was like, "What is it?" And he's like, "It's the Shawn Ryan podcast." And I was like, "Oh no, I don't think I've heard it, or maybe I'd heard of you or something." And he put it on, and I was hooked, man. From the get go, I was hooked. It's just what you do and the conversations you have and the guests you bring on are absolutely incredible.
Man, thank you. I really appreciate that, man. That means a lot. I listened to yours too, and the first one I listened to was your interview with Dan Crenshaw,
Oh
and
yeah.
it did not go as expected. I thought it was a phenomenal interview. I
How
mean,
how so? What did you expect, and then where did it go? Like,
I
what did you
was
think?
expecting. I like how you kept it balanced and you didn't do the outrage stuff. Usually
Mm,
if it's going to be with a political guy, then it's a lot of outrage and and I would say very divisive. And I you guys just conducted that interview with class, and I don't think there's a lot of
awesome.
class out there anymore, especially in the political in the political realm.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't why do you think that is? Do you think it's more prevalent than it was before or than it's ever been that people just can't disagree with some level of at least mutual respect? I mean, I don't have to agree with you, but we can have some mutual respect towards our disagreement.
I think it. Yeah, I got a lot of theories on this, but I mean, it's just when you create controversy, everybody knows it. It it gets a lot of attention, no matter what the controversy is. And I think that the politicians have been conditioned to think that, especially I see it a lot from the younger generation that's coming into politics. They build a big social media following. It's almost like they're more concentrated on that than they are on being a political figure and doing what's best for the country, is building their following. And then they start with that outrage stuff. And you know unfortunately, Ryan, a lot of people are followers and not leaders, and they just, whatever somebody says, they're going with it. And we see it in the headlines, we see it with the political thing, we see it with everybody. It's outrage, outrage, outrage. And I'm hoping, that's starting to change. And like with guys like having that conversation with Crenshaw, and you guys put my mind at ease with a lot of stuff, especially with, like, I remember at one point in that conversation, you guys were talking about, Crenshaw brought up, like, I think everybody thinks we go into like this secret chamber and da 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 da, and he's like, that's not how it is. And to hear somebody say it, you know what I mean? It's good. You guys, I thought that was a great interview. I listened to it twice.
He's interesting because I don't agree with Dan on everything. I mean, it would be weird if you agreed with somebody on everything. That'd be kind of a
Yeah.
weird thing. Uh, but I think he does a pretty good job explaining himself. If you listen to his videos, but he gets, frankly, and I'm gonna get blasted for this. He gets thrown under the bus by Republicans a lot for being a rhino, all these kind of terms that people throw around. And if you actually ask him about his political insight or his commentary on a specific bill, like if you actually spent any amount of time, like, hey, why this, why that, why this, it's actually pretty insightful. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. The problem is most citizens don't take the time to do it. And also they don't
Hmm.
have access to some of these people like you and I have. And so, I give a benefit of the doubt, but you're right. Everybody just loves to be outraged about things without looking into it.
Yeah. I don't agree with him on everything either. I don't agree with really anybody with everything, just like you were saying. But you have to be willing to listen, to somebody if you're going to resolve anything. And then about the rhino stuff, I can't keep tabs on all these politicians. Everybody, there's a new rhino, seems like every day. And half the time you ask these people, well, like, why is he a rhino? And they can't answer the question,
Yeah.
or what is a
Yeah.
rhino? And they can't answer the question. And it's just people regurgitating the shit that they've been told, or they read on social media or a headline, and these headlines like are all bogus now. If you read the
Right.
articles, they're completely different than the headline.
Well,
But
I heard something, I think it was just this morning as I was driving into the gym. It was well, I'll say it this way. All politicians at the end of the day seem to be about the same. There are some people who I think are different, who are actually fighting for American citizens, but they're few and far between. But at the end of the day, Republicans want to spend money just as much as Democrats. Everybody wants to go to war. Like it's a wild thing to me. And then I heard Mitch McConnell because Zelensky just arrived in DC yesterday,
I
and
saw
Mitch,
that.
yeah, in his tracksuit, which I'm like, that's actually like it's really disrespectful, but also pretty awesome. Like if I'm if I'm coming to the White House in my tracksuit, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty awesome. But I heard Mitch McConnell say, and again, it was just a quote, so I want to hear the rest of it. But he said the aid to Ukraine, because we're giving them what billions of dollars. I think it's another $1.7 billion or something. The aid to Ukraine is the most pressing concern for America right now. And I
Mm,
was like, really? Like the most pressing concern, not our borders, not the fentanyl crisis, not like that. Like the aid to Ukraine is the number one concern. And I just can't help but think that these people with another, what is it, $1.8 trillion, they just passed another $1.8 trillion budget package. Like it's ridiculous. It's insane. And they're all in it together.
yeah, I I know, man. I don't understand anything that's happening, on really on either side of the aisle. Like it's just what's up is down, what's left is right. And and I think another thing that is really bad in this country is hypocrisy. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And, I tend to lean more towards the conservative side, which also means I'm going to be the hardest on the conservative side, and the fucking
Good point.
hypocrisy that I see coming out of the conservative side I just can't believe it. It's so bad that I'm re-registering as an independent now.
Hmm. What are
You
there
know,
specific issues that you think that have this hypocrisy built into it that you're talking about? Are there specific cases or specific situations?
just yeah, I could give you some specifics. Like, let's take, for example, let's rewind, I don't know, 2 years, and when COVID was kind of first coming out, the mass mandates were going nation worldwide, and there was I don't know who it was. It might have been Cardi B or someone along those. It was somebody like that or her, and she had come out with something, and she basically said, I think she was pro mask or something like that, and all the conservatives got all pissed off. And what do you always hear? LeBron James gets up, Cardi B, whoever, name it, a celebrity that comes up, and they express their opinion. And what do all conservatives do? We don't give a shit what you have to say. Get back on the court and play basketball, or get back on the stage and sing, or get back over there and dance, or go shake your ass, or whatever your talent is, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but so then fast forward a month, and that same person who was, get off the stage, we don't want to hear what you have to say, dance, sing, play basketball, play football, whatever. It was she was anti-vax. And so then what you saw was, a 30, 60, I don't know, 90, a month, a couple months had passed. Then all of a sudden, every fucking conservative on the planet wants to hear what she has to say, because she, you know what I mean? Because she's talking about something that they believe in now. So now all of a sudden everybody wants to hear what she has to say, and everybody backs her, and you see it. You just see it over and over and over again. I don't give a shit what these celebrities have to say. I don't care. Nobody wants to hear their opinion. Guess what? Then, Joe Biden. Joe Biden. Here's another one. Joe Biden is he's senile old man. He's not with it. I don't think he's with it. I don't care. I'll say it. Yeah, I don't think he's there. I think he's gone. And I don't want to hear what he has to say. And 90% of the time it pisses me off. But that's what everybody says, right? Oh, he's unfit for duty. He's unfit to lead the United States of America. Why are we listening? He can't even put a sentence together. He's 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 got dementia. Then they put Kanye West on, who is what, a diagnosed schizophrenic on Tucker
Yeah,
Carlson.
clearly mentally
But we
disturbed.
but we diagnosed, fucking diagnosed, dude. But we don't want to hear what Biden has to say because he's not mentally fit. So let's bring the fucking schizophrenic on Tucker Carlson and listen to what he
Mhm.
has to say.
Yeah,
Are you
that's a
fucking kidding
really
me,
good
man?
point. Well, and then
You
the other
know?
thing I've noticed we do too is like Cardi B or Kanye or any of these people, they'll say one thing that maybe is a more politically conservative ideology or statement, and then the conservative side of the aisle will turn them into their new savior. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, hold up. That person said something I agree with, which is great. That's fine. I can agree with that person, but they are not the new symbol of the conservative party just because they happen to say one thing that made some sense to you. But
Yeah.
we do it. We prop them up, and then we're let down when they go back to their woke ideology. It's like, well,
I
yeah,
know,
they were always that. They were always that.
it's like, did anybody do a background check on this guy or read the second sentence of the article? No.
Yeah,
And it's a joke, man. And it's on I think it's definitely on both sides. I'm just, like I said, I'm
sure.
hard on conservatives because that's the side that I lean on. And we used to, man, everything's just changed, Ryan. We used to be not loud, and we put our money where our mouth is, and we I feel like a lot of times we took the high road. I feel like that. And I felt like the conservative side was always quieter and had a certain amount of class to it. Well, we can't say that shit anymore. We can't. And I mean, all those riots and stuff that were happening, all the BLM and Antifa shit that was happening, what, 2020 time frame, 2019,
Yeah.
whenever it was. My timeline's messed
2020,
up.
2021, maybe somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it started happening before
That's
COVID
right.
happened.
Because you could go as COVID restrictions didn't matter if you were going to riot for the quote unquote right reasons. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But then we saw J6 happen. And it's that's a divisive subject, but it did happen, and it it was some sort of a riot. Whatever you want to label that day as, it shouldn't have happened, and now we can't say that we take the high road because that was. I mean, that's not all conservatives, but you know what I'm saying. And that's not all
Yeah.
Democrats, that are in the streets rioting, and that's not all conservatives that stormed the Capitol that day. And whether you like what happened, whether you didn't like what happened, it doesn't matter. It did happen, and it wasn't the best. You know what I mean? It wasn't the high road, and so now you got that too. That's another hypocritical point that I'm trying to bring to light. Is it's just people are just going to do whatever they're told to, whatever, you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Whatever they're told to believe, or if somebody's going to reinforce your way of thinking or your beliefs, it's all good. But the minute that person reinforces something that you don't believe, they're the biggest piece of shit in the world.
I think what you're saying is right, but also some of the verbiage that you're using is where we run into a problem. It's an accurate reflection of what's going on, but it's like we this, we that, they this, they that. And I think one of the biggest issues from where I sit is this two-party system
Yeah.
where I'm just going to fall into a camp and regardless of what they say, even if it's the dumbest shit you've ever heard, hey, that's my team, gotta support them. It's like, no, you don't, and you shouldn't. And that's why
Yeah.
I don't know that I uh, believe some of these people, but you have like Tulsi Gabbard. There was another person that just shifted away from the Democratic Party and became an independent. I don't know that I totally believe them, but also I like that because hopefully, maybe it'll move towards a trend where we actually vet our political elected officials instead of just voting party or straight line ticket. And that's the
Yeah.
problem. It's identity politics.
No, I 100% agree with you. And that's why I'm going to register as an independent, because I think there are good things with both parties. And then I think there's bad things with both parties. Um, I think the majority of things right now are bad with both parties, but, and I know what you're saying. All these people, do you think those are publicity stunts? All
I
these
do.
people switching parties, because it's
Yeah.
somebody switches a party and then they go on 50 podcasts to let everybody know that they switched parties, and it's like, that's great. Are you going to do any work, or are you just going to go on
Yeah.
podcasts
I
and
mean,
tell everybody that you switched parties?
that's a great, I mean, you're talking about Tulsi Gabbard right now. Like she switched parties and then she did the podcast tour with actually I would assume some mutual friends, that we have. And I'm like, I don't know if I totally believe this gal. Like I don't know if this is legitimate. I don't know if this is a wolf in sheep's clothing, or at least trying to be. I maybe it's just a general disdain and level of distrust for our politicians that makes me feel that way, but I'm not convinced. This other
Yeah.
one, I wish I could remember who it was. Uh Ben Shapiro brought up a good point, and he said that it was good for her to make a switch to the independent party because she wouldn't be challenged in her own primary uh, by another Democrat, and she could register as independent and let that person win or something, and she could beat him in a general election, but not in a primary. It was something like that. So it was political gamesmanship as opposed to, no, I really don't believe in this party anymore, and that's why I'm making this shift away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are seeing what's going on, and and they're changing things up, and switching their circle of influence, or whatever you want to call it, their political party. But yeah, I'm with you. It's just, everybody knows what a dirty game it is now. The
Yeah,
cat's out of the bag. You
yeah.
know,
You've had some interesting people on your podcast. I mean, these are like border patrol agents and uh, uh, LEOs. I mean, just some incredible people that have had that you would never meet or hear of otherwise. Are there some podcast guests that really resonated with you or talked about an issue that's flying under the radar that more of us need to be aware of instead of being distracted by this political gamesmanship we've been talking about?
man, a lot of good guests. They all move me in one way or another. But I would say, I don't know how under the radar this is, because I kind of quit watching mainstream. But I did this interview with this guy, Peter Schweitzer, um, last year around this time. And basically, what he did was uncover a ton of the corruption that between our politicians and China, and how
Hmm.
China's influencing athletes, big tech, education system, our politicians, everybody. And he talks, it's not just, hey, these guys are bought by China. He goes into exactly what deals each person has with the Chinese, with the CCP, and and how they're getting the money, and all of that. And that was very eye opening. And he went on all the news channels, and all the news channels covered was Joe Biden and Hunter Biden corruption, which you don't have to look far to find that, right? But
Of
what he did
course.
do, what else he did is what I really like about him is he kept it balanced. It didn't appear to be balanced. He wrote a book called Red Handed with all this stuff in it, because that's all that the media wanted to cover was Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. Well, everybody was in there, from Zuckerberg to Google to Elon Musk to Nancy Pelosi to Mitch McConnell. It was very balanced. It was conservative politicians, it was left politicians, and the point of all of it was everybody is being bought out one way or another by China, and with all the insider information. It wasn't just a headline; it was everything, and that I mean, it's depressing, you know what I mean? But it's
And
important that
scary.
people need to hear this stuff. And so basically, what they're doing with a lot of these guys and women is they're creating businesses for them, because in China, it's communist, Chinese Communist Party. Any business can be ripped from you immediately. They control everything. So what they'll do is they'll build these guys a business. Like McConnell has a big shipping company. His wife's Chinese, built her a shipping company. China has the supply chain pretty much hammered down for the US, right? So a shipping company would be big, big, big money,
No doubt.
from all the shipping going back and forth from China and the US. Well, if Mitch McConnell doesn't do what China wants him to do, well, guess what?
They shut it down.
That business is gone, done.
Wow.
And that's how it's done. And then, take big tech guys, Musk, Zuckerberg, uh, anybody in the AI world, especially Google. What they build in these chip factories over there, because you know how it is. I mean, just a small business, all the red tape, getting a small business up. Who do I own taxes to? Oh, I didn't even know I owed that tax. It's a pain in the ass, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
By
so think
design.
about yeah, so think about it on a mass scale on something like Tesla or SpaceX or Google or Facebook or in any major corp, Amazon, well, then you can go to China and China's like, oh, yeah, you don't have to do any of that shit over here. We'll just build you a chip factory. Well, under Chinese law, anything that can help Chinese government, which is anything, right? You have to disclose what you found. So all these research labs and these chip
Mm.
factories, and I'm having a brain fart here, but Jinping, or president of China, he's
Mm-hmm.
already come out and said, the person that wins the race of artificial intelligence is going to achieve global domination. So what's he doing? He's building all these chip factories and he's bringing big tech over to China, because they don't have to deal with all this red tape. They don't have to deal with the EPA shit. They don't have to deal with any of that. You know, um, None of it. You know, any of those red tape. Well, all that technology. Guess who's getting access to it? It's not the U.S. government. It's not the U.S. military. It's not NASA. It's China. They get access to all that information because it's in their country. It's their lab. It's all of that, and so these big business guys, are going over there and like, oh shit, we don't have all this red tape we have to deal with. Okay, cool, let's make it right here. We'll take that chip factory. And that's how this shit's happening, with
That's
that's how the
interesting.
money's happening.
It's hard because as a business owner, and I know you are as well, as we see opportunity to make things cheaply or more affordably, better technology, whatever we can do to improve the consumer end product that we're making available. That's a big incentive for us, but there's also the moral thing to do, right? And how is that
Yeah,
going to impact future generations? But I got to say, it would be pretty enticing to want to do that. That's why there's some great companies like Origin's one of them, and other companies that have decided, no, we're severing that supply chain. We're not doing that. And we're going to make everything 100% sourced and grown and made and supported here in America. Like, that's way harder to do. But to me, it's the right thing to do. I actually think there needs to be policies in place that keep people from, or even I wouldn't go so far as to say not doing business there, but I would say not allowing China to buy up assets or even land here in America. Like, there's got to be
yeah.
policies in place to protect our assets and our resources, but we don't have them.
Yeah, well, you know, one of the only things, I think it might be the only thing that a Chinese person can apply for financial aid or a loan or anything for is land.
Mm.
So what
As a
does that
Chinese
tell you?
citizen, is that what you're saying?
So they'll finance them to buy land here in the US
Here
because
in the country.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. You know, it's China really scares the hell out of me, Ryan. I mean, if you look at what they're doing in Africa too, I mean, they're settling Africa. You know, it's
Mm.
not, they're going over there and they're putting in big, big, big infrastructure. I mean, they're doing it in the US too, but look at I mean, look at what happened, you know. Guess who was there? Guess who was sitting right there when the Afghan pullout disaster happened to take over all the lithium mines and minerals that are over there? China. Who was there negotiating with Taliban 48 hours after that went down? China. Who's taking over Africa? China. They're building 4-lane highways. We're not talking in little shanty towns. You know, we're talking skyscrapers, highways, sewage. I mean, like entire metropolitan infrastructure in China, or I mean, I'm sorry, in Africa, all these different areas in Africa, this is happening. I mean, that's you know, people are like, oh, that's nice. No, that's Chinese influence. That's not that's them taking
Well,
over.
and what they're doing is so they'll go in and they'll negotiate with these provinces or states. I don't know the right term, so forgive me on that. And they'll say, hey, we'll build you this infrastructure. We'll build you this highway system, knowing full well that they can't, this country or this province can't afford this highway system. And so as soon
Mm-hmm.
as they go default on their loans and their obligations, China says, hey, don't worry about it. We'll go ahead and we're just going to run it now.
Yep.
So they're
Well, they've
doing it
already
in
all the
dark and
favors are
mischievous
happening
ways.
too. Yep,
Yeah.
all the favors are happening too. Those political favors, and I mean, if you think about it, what would you do, Ryan? I would do it. I mean, it's mutually beneficial for both parties. I mean, you're in the military. I don't know where you deployed, but I'm sure you've seen some shitholes, you know. And so
Oh, of course.
if you're running Afghanistan or you're running, you know, Uganda or Yemen or any of these places, you know what I mean? Of course, you're going to say you want to come here and build a 6-lane highway and put up skyscrapers. Okay, you know, I mean, perfect. I would do it in a
Yeah.
heartbeat because that's what's good for those people and that's what's good for China. I mean, you got to remember China's doing, I mean, they're doing everything right from my angle. You know, I mean, if I was the president of China, I'd be doing the exact same thing. I'd be doing the TikTok stuff, you know, I'd be spreading my influence all over the world. If your goal is to achieve global domination, well, they're doing a pretty damn good job of it. What's unfortunate is that we're just letting it happen. We're not getting in that game, you know, and it's not like they're just going in and taking over. They're building the infrastructure. They're helping these people. And eventually that's going to hurt us. It already is. You know, I mean,
I
look
don't
at Saudi.
I don't think they're helping. I think they're taking advantage of them. In the short term, it might appear helpful, but in the long term, and that is one of the devious advantages that China has is they're thinking generationally, whereas
Mm-hmm.
Americans, we think in 4-year blocks, right?
Yeah.
So, especially when it comes to politics, a president, for example, is going to say, I'm going to pass a $1.8 trillion package because in the short term, that's going to feel pretty good to the voters and they're going to feel that benefit in their pocketbooks. Forget about your kids that are going to be saddled with all that debt. I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about the next 4 years. Whereas China's looking at it and thinking generationally, their dynasties for generations. It's hard though, because that's not the answer either, is to have a government that is in charge for generations, you know?
Yeah.
So what is advantageous for us is also in a lot of ways our own undoing.
Yeah. That's, they just, they have, I didn't mean they're helping them like, oh, we want to spread the love. I mean, they
Yeah,
know, what I was saying was it's mutually beneficial. It's
sure.
beneficial um, for Uganda to take Chinese aid, and it's beneficial for China to build there. You know, and so it's kind of a everybody wins here. You know what I mean? And if you look at where those people, you know, are living right now, it's going to be an upgrade for them. You know, I mean, there's mass genocide going on there, so anything is going to be better than the current situation they're in. It's just too bad that the US isn't jumping in this, and it's a real shame, and then do you want me to keep going on China? Because I can go on about
I
this.
do, but I want to interject with the question, and if you have more to share on, I'd love to hear it. My question, I almost hate to ask it because it is a difficult question to answer, which is probably why we haven't been able to answer it yet. Is what in the world do we do about it? Like for me, I started this mission with the goal of giving men tools and resources they need to be better men. And I think that's the answer. Like if we have more people who are out of debt, we have more fathers. I know you're a first time father as well, relatively recently. Like if we have more fathers, more men out of debt, more men who have some sort of moral compass they operate their life by, more marriage, more families, more community, then that begins to solve a lot of this. Do you have the same sort of belief with what you're doing as a mission when you bring these people in and bring awareness to what you're doing? Or what do you see as your contribution to the solution?
My contribution to the solution is it's simple. For my podcast, it's two things. I like helping people get over personal problem. I mean, I think we all get stuck in our own head. And so when I bring a lot of my guests on, it's how to get out of your own head. And, these are the struggles that I've been through, and this is how I've overcome it, and so it's those type of interviews, which happen to be primarily the military genre that I bring on. It's overcoming adversity and look, this is how bad I had it. This is where it took me, and I got myself out of it. The other thing that I like doing is bringing truth, real truth, not divisive, shit. I just want people to be informed, and I really like when Schweitzer came on, back to him, I watched every interview that guy did on that subject with his new book, or his book at the time, Red Handed. And when he came on, I said, look, I've seen all your interviews. Everybody goes straight to Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. I don't want to do that. Here's what we're going to do. I read your book. We're going to do Republican and then Democrat, and a Republican and then a
Mm,
Democrat. I want to keep it balanced because it's all in there. Everybody just labels them. Everybody wants to jump to the conservative, what suits the conservative party, but it's all in there. Like the Mitch McConnell stuff, it's all in there. And then I also said, I want to leave politics last. Let's go big tech, education, and there was one other one too, and then political will leave for last. And so that's what we did, and it 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 worked. That's not the typical interview on my channel. It did great, threw his book into the bestseller list again, and it worked because we weren't picking sides here. It was just, this is the information, we're giving it to you. You guys do whatever you want with it, but here's the truth,
yeah.
you know, and and so that's kind of my contribution, is bringing people hope. When you think you're down and out, there's always a way out of it. Life just goes like that. It's going to be ups, and then we're going to be downs, and you got to pick yourself back up and get off your ass and do it. But as far as the problem, how do we fix it? I mean, I think problem we're trying to solve too many problems. One, why the fuck are we helping? Why are we so involved in Ukraine? Like this,
Yeah.
this shit's ridiculous. Look at our fucking country, Ryan. And this is another. This is an. I'm just going to go on a rant, which probably isn't good, but this is another one of those hypocritical things that I think I got to be honest. I was furious when I heard that Biden is going to put what was it, $10,000 towards paying everybody's college tuition off. I was furious, because people pay a lot of money for a degree, and if it's free, then it doesn't mean anything anymore. And I was and then it's like, well, shit, that's one of the incentives to go in the military is the GI Bill. So what? That's fucking worthless now. It
I didn't
is.
even
It's
consider
fucking
that.
worthless.
Maybe
You
that
know,
was by design. That's interesting. Keep going. I'm just
but it's
processing that for the first time. I never considered that.
so I was really upset. It's like, man, what the fuck happened to actually having to work for something in this country? Then I took two steps back and I started looking at the bigger picture, and I'm like, at that time, we just spent what, $65 billion to Ukraine. Why the fuck aren't we spending that on our own people?
Mm,
And then you have every conservative out there pissed as hell, and it's like, I got to be honest, I can't fucking stand the guy. I hate what's going on in this country right now. But at least something got reinvested into our own people. You know what I mean? At least there's one thing that got reinvested into our own people, and it happens to be education, which, let's be honest, we've fallen off the map when it comes to education in this country. You look at TikTok here and you see a bunch of 12-year-old girls shaking their ass on TikTok. You go to TikTok in China and it's all algebra and math.
mm.
That's what the algorithm serves to that. And so, maybe it's not such a bad thing to reinvest in our own people. Just because you had it tough, you know what I mean, doesn't mean that there's not room for improvement. And so I would rather spend, what is it going to now? 110 billion? Because didn't we just throw another 50 or 55 billion to Zelensky the other day?
Yeah,
Which
I don't know
takes
what
us
the
to
amount was anymore.
it's like $115 billion now to Ukraine, which is doing nothing. But at least for us, and then we have all these people drowning in school debt, which you were just talking about, right? Getting people out of debt, being a good dad, learning how to do finances and shit. Well, let's set the next generation up for success. I mean, it makes sense. It does
I
make
mean, I
fucking
hear where you're
sense that we're
coming from.
reinvesting into education.
I maybe, but not the way that it's being done. And I'll tell you why. The minute the government gets involved in things like that, we start to see high inflation within those categories. So you could take insurance and the
Mm-hmm.
medical community, for example. My wife and I, when we started having kids, we came across a receipt. It was a receipt from when her grandfather had her mother, I believe. And I can't remember the number, but it was like $600 or something. And they
Yeah,
wrote a check to the hospital and paid and got a receipt, and it was done and done. And then you can
yeah,
start getting the government involved, and the medical community is like, cool, well, we know we're going to get paid. There's no more competition on this stuff. So we're going to jack up the prices because we know the taxpayer is going to foot the bill.
yeah,
And the same thing will happen with education. So somebody who wants to get education but doesn't quote unquote qualify for government assistance, they're going to have to pay exorbitant tuition rates because college institutions will realize, hey, we're charging what 20 grand a semester right now, but we know the government's going to pay, so we'll just raise our tuition rates to 30, 40, 50, 60, 80 grand. It's not going to
yeah,
solve the problem. It's only going to go up, and it's going to hurt those people who the government doesn't deem worthy of other people's money.
yeah. I never thought of that, and you're absolutely right. But I can't engineer the program. All I can say is that the principle of giving back to the U.S., not even giving back, just investing in your own fucking country, can't be a
Agreed.
bad idea. And
Yeah, I agree with
yeah,
that.
we're gonna have to work through corruption and people trying to take advantage of the system and shit. That's never gonna stop. But you got to throw something out there and then work on it. But back to the point, what do I think is going to solve this shit? We got to get some country pride and patriotism back, man. I mean, that I think the number one issue in this country right now is not it's not Ukraine. I don't think it's trans. I don't think it's race problems. I think it's just overall divisiveness, and it's so fucking bad, Ryan. I mean, let's bring up the border, for example. Does anybody really give a shit about the people that are coming across the border?
No, of course not.
No. What do you hear? You hear the only reason the Democrats are doing that is because they want all the fucking voters, and because they're all going to vote blue. Well, then it came out that, oh, they might start voting red now that they're here. So now we're all of a sudden we're going to lock down the border. And it's like, why don't we just do what's best for the fucking country, and quit worrying about the only reason you're doing that is you're getting all these new blue voters or you're getting all these new red voters, or it shouldn't be about the votes. It should be about what's best for the fucking country, right? And And so that's part of the reason why I went down there, and maybe we need to work on our immigration policies and the system on getting these people in rather than, you know what I'm getting? Because there's a lot of good people. I mean, coming in, there's a lot of people that are hungry from work. And last time I checked, there aren't too many Americans hungry for work right now. I see a lot of, I see a lot of illegals who are hungry for work. I don't see a lot of Americans that are hungry for work, especially when it comes to, the blue collar jobs. I don't see
Yeah, I
anybody
think
banging the door down to become a construction worker or a plumber or, yeah, a landscaper. I don't see that. Do you?
yeah, no, I don't. I don't. I think you're right. And I think there's opportunities for we have to look at the incentive structure of things, right? So if we're looking at the incentive structure of organizations shipping their goods and services and developments overseas, then they're going to do it because they're incentivized to do it,
Yeah.
right? Or if you incentivize somebody to get into a blue collar job or bring a select few people here that we pick through a process to have
Yeah.
them here because they can fulfill these needed jobs, and we incentivize that to happen, people are going to gravitate towards the incentive. Of course, like anybody coming into the country illegal, they're incentivized to do it. Like
Hmm.
I would do it, wouldn't you?
Oh
Like if
yeah.
you lived in one of these other countries, I would cross the Rio Grande in a heartbeat. I would do whatever I could to get myself and other people here. I would do that, but that doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
It's just that
No,
the incentive structure is set up in a way that would make me want to do that and come into the country illegally.
I mean, here's an example. So I went down there and I jumped into a migrant camp, and me and this guy Ed Calderon snagged. It was getting kind of dangerous. They were about ready to start throwing rocks and shit at us because they thought we were up to no good, and we obviously looked very out of place.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah,
So
I bet.
so we grabbed a couple of migrants and offered them some money and a hot meal at a coffee shop. And so we took them out of the migrant camp off location and brought them to a safer location into a coffee shop. I just interviewed them right there, and because I wanted to know like who are these people and why are they coming across and why are they doing it legally? And what I found, and yeah, the guy could have been lying. You know what I mean? I don't know. There's no way to do a background check. There's no way to do any kind of check in an environment like that. But what I was told is this guy's making like $1 a day, basically running around with a battery, external battery charging cell phones. You know, and he's been there for I can't remember how many years, waiting for his packet to go through so that he could legally come into the U.S. He lives in a tent with his wife, came up from Honduras, has lived in a tent on the border. I think it was like 2 years. And that's how they make their money. They run around the migrant camp and charge cell phone batteries for those that have a cell phone,
Mm.
and and they're just waiting. He's like, I just want to come over legally. I want to live the American dream. And it's like, with no matter what party is for or against immigration, it's like, man, what the fuck, guys? Like, we need workers. This guy
Yeah,
wants to
let's
work.
take that
All you
guy.
guys, yeah, like, why don't you make it easier for people to legally come into this fucking country so they can work and we can hire them to work because we don't have anybody that wants to do that kind of work. Rather than just leave the borders open and all these cartels are coming through and the fentanyl and sex trafficking is huge, which I would love to talk about that. But all these things are, you know, cash, weapons, drugs, humans, everything's getting smuggled back and forth across that border. And yeah, everybody's like, oh, well, that's going to happen anyways. Yeah, it is going to happen anyways, but it's going to be cut down a lot, even if it is a wall, even if or whatever it is. I mean, if you put an obstacle in front of somebody, it's going to cut down the amount of people that are going to be able to go across it, and the
Of
more
course.
obstacles there are, the harder it's going to be. So why don't you reinforce the border and open up the policy, and but it's just this divisive shit. That's all we see all the time. Nobody wants to work anything out. Even with, am I just ranting too much? You can tell me to stop.
I'm just listening. I wonder if you could like get into people's brain and get rid of the incentives and get rid of the reasons they might do one thing over the other and say, all right, well, like what are you really thinking? And I wonder how closely we would all be aligned. But you get those incentives in there, and you get the corruption going, and you get the quest for power and money and all this other stuff, and it just starts to change the way people behave and even go against their own morality. It's wild.
It is, isn't it? It's. I don't think a lot of people even know where they stand on certain issues. They're just going to do whatever CNN or Fox News tells them to do,
Yeah.
and they're not, and they're too lazy to actually dig into it. Or maybe lazy is a rough word. Maybe they just don't have time. I mean, I don't have time to dig into all that. I'm an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. I'm sure you don't either.
Yeah,
But
you got to choose. But I think it is refreshing to hear. Like I hear a lot of similarities between you, two people that come to mind, Mike Ritland and Clint Emerson. Like
yeah,
the way that you guys communicate about these issues is very matter of fact. It doesn't seem to be clouded by, political affiliation or some other, incentive that we aren't aware of. I'm actually wondering if, and I know those guys are friends of yours, and I'm wondering if the mentality that you guys bring to the table, where it's so matter of fact, and I don't care what you think about it, like here's the truth of it, is that a personality thing? And you guys found that you gravitated towards each other because of those personalities? Is that something that was cultivated through your military experience? Is that a collection of experiences and life events that makes you operate this way? Like, where does that come from?
I think it's just who we are. I mean, I'm I don't really talk to Clint very often, probably less than once a year. I mean, I've never
Hmm.
actually even met him in real life. And Mike,
Oh, really?
I didn't, yeah, I've never, I didn't meet Mike until about 5 years ago, and it's very sporadic. I just think that's kind of who we are. And, you know, like-minded people eventually find each other, you
Sure.
know, but, I, I, I think people like that are important because they just cut to the truth, and and sometimes it takes that for to open people's eyes, and if that makes any sense at all. But
Yeah.
I mean, even my my first interview next year is probably going to be a flop, and it's about global warming, climate crisis, whatever you want to, climate change, whatever you want to call it, which I don't know, man. That's another divisive topic, but I found these scientists. Hear me out before you judge me. But I found these
I think I heard you
scientists.
talk about this somewhere. I can't remember
Really,
where maybe I don't know. Maybe go finish up. I won't interrupt.
I
Maybe I making it up. I don't know.
I found these scientists who claim they have the answer to the carbon footprint. And I was like, okay, I like science. I'm interested in it. I don't know a lot about global warming. I also had Alex Epstein on, who is the complete opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to climate change. He's all about fossil fuels. But these guys, the good thing about these guys, Ryan, is they they invented something that's going to help the planet that isn't going to cost us anything. And nobody's giving these guys the fucking time of day, and basically what it is it's a solution that you spray on plants or trees that allows them to do photosynthesis a couple more hours a day than normal. If plants are over, I think it's 72 degrees, they don't do photosynthesis. So basically this is a
Hmm.
suntan lotion. It goes on the plant, keeps it below 72 degrees or whatever the temperature actually is, and which enables the plant to do photosynthesis, double the time. And so, what is photosynthesis? It's turning carbon into oxygen, right? That's good for the planet. It's not going to affect our energy prices, our gas prices. It's not going to affect anything. It's not going to cause inflation. Things aren't going to be more expensive to ship. It's not going to cause that. They say for $1 billion, they could treat every forest in every national forest, I should say, in the country. And when I was talking to him, I was like, well, what are we going to have to spray every tree on the planet just to see a dent? And they
Yeah.
said, no, actually, if we just spray our own national forests just in the US, we'll see a major dent within a few years. And it's like these guys have been walked into Congress on to both sides, and nobody gave a shit. You know why? Because they don't know how to make any fucking money off of it,
That's why.
and it's solved the problem, which is one less debate they can all fight over. And it's just sad to see. And I'm probably going to get a lot of flack up on it because, like I said, the majority of my base is conservative, and I think for the most part, conservatives think global warming is bullshit. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you can't fucking argue that this shit's better for the planet. On top of that, plants see, I think it's 20 to 30% more growth, 20 to 30% less water than untreated plants, which changes the entire farming game for the West Coast. It's going to help with all the wildfires that are over there. And it could possibly be a solution to world hunger, and nobody's looking at this shit. And it's
Yeah.
like, man, you got this genius scientists that developed this, and it's out there and nobody's looking at it. And they're going to get a bunch of shit because, oh, they believe in global warming. Well, whether they believe in global warming or not, dude, it's fucking good for the planet. It is cleaner air.
Yeah.
I would think don't you want your kid to breathe cleaner air? No? Okay, fine. You know what I mean? what
But I
but
haven't,
it's
I mean, with the global warming thing, like I don't meet too many people in real life, whether they're conservatives or not, who are like, whether it's a big man-made issue that might be something people debate, but every conservative I know, myself included, is like, no, I think we ought to probably do a pretty good job taking care of the planet. Like I think it would be
yeah,
the same way I clean my office or I vacuum my carpet every once in a while. Like I think having a clean place is probably a good thing.
yeah,
Like, but
right?
that's what normal people think. But again, in the media, this goes back to where we started. They want to pit us against each other. And
Yeah,
well, that's a conservative talking point. That's a liberal talking point. That's a this, that's a that. It's just
exactly.
humans having
It's sad.
conversations. Yeah.
It's so sad. But yeah, it's just it's this country is it's lost right now, and we need somebody to bring it together so that we can start to actually work through some of these issues and not just argue, riot, loot, you know, make a point, kneel for the flag. Like this is all ridiculous. It really is. It's so fucking childish what's
Would
happening.
you run for office like at the state or higher level? You personally?
Uh, I don't. I seriously considered it. Um, I wouldn't throw it out. I don't know. I wouldn't throw it out, but I did. I don't know if I want to put my family through that. You know.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Like that, because you're a common sense, level headed person. I would consider myself in that ballpark too. Not always there, but in the ballpark. And
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm like, why would I do that? Why would I expose myself to that? Why would I put my family through that hostility and that pain and potential attacks, verbal and even physical? Why would I do that? And
Yeah.
that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Normal people don't get involved into politics the way that maybe we ought to strongly consider, although it doesn't really sound that appealing to me at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. I guess maybe there's always a possibility I could do it. But just not right now.
Yeah. How is it with so you're a first time father, right? Just relatively recently.
15 months.
15
Been a dad
months.
for 15 months.
How has that been on top of, the podcast, your other businesses that you're running, life in general? Has it changed even any of your cultural perspective that maybe you've had because you've been able to talk to so many different people? What has that been like?
It's before he came, I was really worried about the state of the world and the education system, and I think we're all really worried about it. But what's really changed for me, Ryan, is you have to bring positivity home. You have to do it. You cannot tell your kid the world is ending and bring that vibe or that energy into your house. And you have to realize, being a parent, you are your your kid's biggest influence. It's not their teachers. It's not, their friends. It's you. And so that's something that I've really been telling myself is, my son's going to be exposed. Both of our kids, all kids are going to be exposed to a lot of things that we were never exposed to. And and information is so accessible now. Misinformation is even more accessible, and you have to be there as a parent. And it's funny, you see all these parents, and they're all worried about, oh man, I can't believe they're teaching this shit in schools and da 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 da, and they're always the first ones to throw their kid in daycare at 8 weeks old. Can't
Yeah.
wait to get the kid out, but they're all upset, right? Anyways, I'm ranting again, but I think that's like my there's been a lot of changes. That's the first one that comes up in my head is being more positive at home, because I still am kind of a doom and gloom guy, but I was forced to change myself. I can't be doing that shit around my son, even though he's only 15 months. Like, they pick up on that kind of energy. They pick up if you're arguing with your wife, and pick up on all that stuff. And so I really try to just remember, like, I'm the biggest influence in my son's life. And I've seen older kids who come home and that have been through the critical race theory stuff or whatever, is happening in schools. I'm not there yet in life, but I have a lot of friends who have kids, that do that. And this discussion always comes up, with when we're talking to other parents, it always comes up. And a lot of the ones that have the older ones are like, kids are smart. They're smarter than we give them credit for. They've been putting this stuff in our school for years, and we just found out about it. And we talk to our kids like, hey, this might start happening. And it's like, Dad, that happened 3 years ago. We all know it's bullshit.
Mm.
And it's like, okay,
Yep.
you know, all right. And that, why they know that? Because of the home, because of the home environment. Obviously, it's not from the school because they're pushing it, but it's from the home. And if you provide a good home for your kid, you know, then that's going to carry forward, it is. And people need to raise their kids and quit sending them to have everybody else raise them,
I agree.
and get your kid off the damn phone, get them off TikTok,
Yeah.
get them in some activities, go do something with them. And you don't see a lot of that now. And that's why I love what you're doing, Ryan, is at first I didn't see it. And that's probably because I was so involved in business. And I didn't, if you don't have kids, you're not, I wasn't really into kids before I had a kid,
Of course.
but, but now I really pay attention. I pay attention everywhere I go, and I see, I mean, I think your original mission, and your mission still is to, keep men masculine, and building confidence and all of those kind of things that are important when it comes to being a man. And now, I notice it. I go to the store and I ask somebody, hey, I need a container at Home Depot. And these kids, they just look at their feet and it's like, where's the container department? Oh, I don't know. You got to talk to that guy. And they can't even make eye contact.
It's true, man.
And
It's so true.
it used to piss me off, but now, but it's at Bass Pro Shop, it's at Cabela's, it's at REI, it's at all these stores, and it's just these kids, and they're looking at their damn shoes the whole time they're talking to you. They don't want to help you. They can't make eye contact, and it's like, where in the fuck is this kid's dad? What does he do? And you know, where is he? I want to meet this fucker. Like, how can you have a 15-year-old son that walks around everywhere and looks at his fucking feet and mumbles and can't make eye contact at it with anybody? Where the fuck is your dad? I want to meet this piece of shit. And it's everywhere. It's more and more and more and more everywhere I go. It's starting to happen, and that's it's sad to see it. And so now I realize, I always liked what you're doing, but now I realize, like, holy shit, like, this is fucking important, man. This is
Crucial.
real important, because these kids aren't getting this shit at home. They're not getting what they need at home. They're getting
Yeah,
pushed
they're
aside. They're not getting any attention, because everything else is more important than they are at home. and it's that's the consequence.
Yeah, it is disheartening to see, but it also presents an opportunity. And you said it best when you were talking about people who are complaining about the school system, for example. And then you ask them, well, are you on the school board? No. Do you homeschool your kids? No. Do you go to your kids' PTA meetings? No, I've been busy with work. Do you know
Yeah,
who your kid's teacher is and who their friends are? Well, no, they changed this year. Good hell. Like, what are you
yeah,
complaining about? Like,
because Tucker
like,
Carlson told him to complain.
right.
You know,
And, like, there's some legitimate reasons to complain. Absolutely. And also finish the thought, like, which is, okay, now I don't like this and this is what I'm going to do about it. But most people
yeah,
don't get to that point. Like, we've had to make some serious sacrifices to make sure that our kids stay at home. I can hear them
yeah,
downstairs. Our kids are homeschooled. Do I go to all the school board meetings? Do I go to PTA? No, I don't. Admittedly, I don't go to those things. But you know what? We're homeschooling our kids. There's other kids in the community that we do co-op. I've coached my kids' basketball teams. I want to know who my kids are hanging out with. I have access to my son's cell phone, and it's a dumbed down cell phone that he can send, text, pictures, no video, no social media access on it. If he wants to get on Instagram, he can have his Instagram account because he's got a podcast, but it's on my phone. He has to use my phone and sign into his account on my account in order for him to access it. Like, we're
I like
involved. We
that.
have to be involved, and we're just not, man.
I like that. I'm going to use that. But and I don't want to. If you don't mind, I would like to backtrack. I'm not giving my opinion on if I like CTR or I dislike. I don't like it. You know, that's not the point. My point is people are being fucking hypocrites and they just want to be outraged just to be outraged. And if you want to be outraged, great, be outraged, but do something about it.
Yes.
Contribute something to society. Don't just sit here and waste 30 minutes of my time bitching about all the fucked up shit that's happening in the education system. And then 2 minutes later, we're talking about how you're pissed off because you can't get your 8-week-old into a daycare. It's like, what are you doing to help? That's nothing. Most people are doing nothing. They just want to complain all the time. And that was my point that I was making.
Yeah, no, I picked up on that. Yeah, for sure. And I think most people did as well. Well, Shawn, I appreciate you, brother, man. This has gone really, really quickly. And I think there's more that we need to talk about. But I propose that the next one we do it live, that we actually sit down and do the full thing, do the real thing, because there's a lot more we need to discuss for sure.
I would love that. I would love that. And yeah, when you get to Nashville, I would love to. I would love you to be in the opposite chair here. Let me interview you. That would be
I
great.
just want to geek out on your studio, man. Like, I gotta say, your production quality. I mean, obviously, you're very deliberate and intentional about that. But your studio is incredible. I was talking to you about cameras you're using, and like, I'm curious about that setup because it's like high quality professional production, and so I just want to pay you that compliment because I see it and I know other people do as well.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. That really means a lot, especially coming from you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
We'll tell the guys where to connect more, find out about your podcast, everything else you have going on, and we'll make sure we send them your way.
Shawn Ryan Show. Everything. My personal Shawn Ryan 762 and the podcast Shawn Ryan Show. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, everything. Instagram. It's all Shawn Ryan Show. So we got some phenomenal interviews coming up. So
Awesome.
yeah.
I'm not
Hope,
going to
hope
check out the global warming one because I'm not supposed to be interested in that. Apparently, somebody told me, you're not supposed to be interested in those talking points as a conservative, but the rest I'll definitely check out.
perfect.
I'll check out the global warming one too. I am intrigued. What's the significance of 762?
You know, Shawn Ryan was taken, so I threw a bullet caliber behind it.
Okay,
And
got
it
it. I
was
wasn't
seven six
sure.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't put that together, but yeah, that makes sense. I like it.
yeah. But
Right on, brother.
but yeah, Ryan. Hey, thanks again for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for
You got a
joining. Appreciate it.
really good thing going. Cheers.